Most people make the mistake of assuming that if someone loves you, closeness should feel natural, that it should be easy, that it should draw them toward you, not send them running in the opposite direction. But here's the paradox you have to understand about avoidant behavior. When they love you deeply, that's often when they pull away the hardest. And it's not because they don't care. It's because love for them doesn't just awaken affection, it awakens fear. It doesn't just open their heart, it opens their oldest wounds. See, avoidant individuals have often learned, somewhere early in life, that closeness and safety don't always coexist. Maybe love was conditional. Maybe vulnerability led to disappointment, betrayal, or shame. Maybe the people they depended on were unpredictable, sometimes present, sometimes gone. Over time, they developed a subconscious belief. If I let someone too close, I'll lose myself or I'll get hurt. That belief doesn't vanish in adulthood. It hides beneath the surface, dormant, until real love walks through the door. And then it wakes up with a vengeance. What you need to realize is that love doesn't just stir joy for them. It stirs alarms. It's like standing near a cliff. The view is breathtaking, but the height is terrifying. Their system interprets intimacy not just as connection, but as risk. And the closer you get, the more those alarm bells ring. Their nervous system isn't calibrated for emotional closeness, so it panics. And the panic says, just space, protect yourself, retreat. This is why avoidants often appear calm and collected when things are casual, but start to shut down the moment things become emotionally real. It's not about you doing something wrong. It's about their body interpreting vulnerability as danger. And here's the kicker: the more they care, the more dangerous it feels. Because now there's something to lose. Now there's a real possibility of pain. So paradoxically, their love intensifies the very behavior that seems to contradict it. Think about it. If you've spent years building emotional walls to keep yourself safe, real love is like an earthquake. It shakes the foundation. It challenges the story you've told yourself. That independence equals safety, that needing no one is strength. Suddenly someone matters. Suddenly your heart is on the line. And that's terrifying for someone who's wired to equate closeness with vulnerability and vulnerability with pain. So they push you away, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. They withdraw not because you don't matter, but because you matter so much that their old defenses go into overdrive. This is the tragic irony of the avoidance experience. Their love and their fear grow in direct proportion to each other. And unless they learn to sit with that fear, to name it and face it, they'll keep repeating the same pattern, chasing distance in the moments that require closeness most. This is where your understanding becomes powerful. Because when you stop interpreting their retreat as rejection and start seeing it as a trauma response, a reflex rooted in self-preservation, you stop personalizing their behavior. You stop making it about your worth. And from that place, you can respond with clarity instead of reactivity. You can hold your boundaries without collapsing into resentment. You can recognize that their fear isn't your job to fix, but it is part of the landscape you're navigating. It's also a reminder to anyone with avoidant tendencies: love doesn't have to equal danger. Vulnerability isn't the enemy, avoidance is. And every time you choose to stay present with your fear instead of running from it, you rewire your capacity for intimacy. You build a new association that closeness can be safe, that love can be grounding, that connection doesn't mean losing yourself. So when an avoidant pushes you away even as they love you, understand this truth. It's not absence of love that drives them. It's the presence of fear. And fear, when left unexamined, will always build walls where love is trying to build bridges. When we talk about avoidance pulling away, we often misinterpret what's really happening beneath the surface. We label it as coldness, disinterest, or rejection. But in reality, distance is rarely about a lack of emotion. It's about too much emotion. For someone with avoidant tendencies, closeness doesn't just feel intimate, it can feel chaotic, overwhelming, even dangerous. And the truth is, their instinct to create distance isn't designed to hurt you. It's designed to help them regain control over a wave of feelings they don't know how to regulate. You have to remember that avoidants are people who, at some point in their life, learned that self-reliance equals safety. They were taught, not always through words, but through experience, that needing others is risky, that emotions are unpredictable, and that vulnerability can cost them more than it gives. So they built a system around control. Control over their environment, control over their feelings, and especially control over their emotional exposure. When they feel that control slipping, their nervous system sounds an internal alarm, and distance becomes the fastest way to silence it. This is why you'll often notice an avoidant become distant right after a moment of closeness. Maybe after a deep conversation, a display of affection, or a declaration of love. To you, that moment felt like connection. To them, it felt like a loss of equilibrium. Their emotional state shifted too quickly, too deeply, and the subconscious story they carry, too much closeness isn't safe, suddenly takes over. Pulling back isn't about erasing what just happened. It's about putting emotional space between them and the intensity they're feeling. That space is their way of breathing again. And it's not just physical space they seek, it's psychological distance too. They might get busy. They might focus on work, hobbies, anything that restores their sense of independence. They're trying to shrink the emotional intensity back down to a level that feels manageable. It's a coping mechanism, not a declaration that they don't care. The paradox is that the stronger their feelings grow, the more distance they may need, because those feelings are colliding with their need for control. Think of it like a thermostat. Most people have a wide comfort zone for emotional temperature. They can handle heat, intensity, passion without needing to cool down. But avoidants have a much narrower range. Once things get too, they flip the switch. They cool the room by creating distance. It's not that they don't want the warmth, it's that they're not used to living in it. Their nervous system is calibrated for self-protection, not sustained closeness. And unless they learn to widen that comfort zone, their reflex will always be to regulate through withdrawal. Now, here's the part most people miss. That regulation is not about you, it's about them. It's about their nervous system, their conditioning, their history. When you personalize their distance, you give it a meaning it doesn't actually hold. And when you react from that place, by chasing, criticizing, or demanding closeness, you often confirm their fear that closeness equals pressure and they pull even further away. But when you can step back and understand that their distance is an emotional coping strategy, you create space for a different dynamic. You stop fighting their reflex and start responding to the deeper fear beneath it. And if you're someone who recognizes avoidant patterns in yourself, this is your call to awareness. Emotional regulation doesn't have to mean withdrawal. Control doesn't have to mean isolation. Real strength isn't about pulling away from what overwhelms you. It's about expanding your capacity to stay present with it. That's the inner work that transforms avoidance into intimacy. So the next time someone pulls back after pulling you close, remember this distance is not always a door closing. Sometimes it's a nervous system gasping for air. And the greatest gift you can give, to them or to yourself, is learning that safety doesn't come from control alone. It comes from the courage to stay open, even when every instinct is telling you to run. One of the most overlooked truths about avoidant behavior is this: love is not just a mirror for joy, it's a mirror for everything we've buried. And that's exactly why avoidants struggle when intimacy deepens. Real connection doesn't just reveal how much they care about you, it exposes the parts of themselves they've spent a lifetime trying not to see. And when those hidden parts rise to the surface, it's not just uncomfortable, it's destabilizing. Avoidants don't push you away because they want to lose you. They do it because love forces them to confront pieces of their inner world they've avoided for years. Their vulnerability, their shame, their fear of inadequacy, their old emotional wounds. Being loved deeply means being seen deeply. And for someone who's built their entire identity around self-sufficiency, control, and emotional distance, being seen that clearly can feel unbearable. It's not the love that hurts, it's the exposure. Think about it. Many avoidants grew up in environments where emotional needs were dismissed, where vulnerability was punished or ignored. They learned to hide their softer parts because showing them led to pain. They became experts at appearing strong, composed, untouchable, not because they were born that way, but because it was safer. And then love walks in and suddenly that mask starts to crack. Suddenly someone is close enough to notice the fear behind the confidence, the longing behind the distance. That closeness doesn't just invite connection, it threatens to unveil everything they've built their identity around hiding. And here's the paradox: they want to be loved. They crave connection just like anyone else. But that craving is at war with the fear of being fully seen. Because being seen means they might have to face their own self-doubt. It means they might have to admit that their independence isn't just strength. It's also armor. And armor can't coexist with intimacy. To be close to someone, you have to let them see the parts you hide. And that's precisely what avoidants have spent their lives trying not to do. This is why avoidants often start pulling back right when the relationship begins to deepen. It's not the other person they're rejecting. It's the reflection of themselves that closeness is forcing them to confront. It's the buried grief, the forgotten need, the unresolved pain that surfaces when someone loves them without condition. That's not an easy mirror to look into. And for many, it's easier to walk away from the mirror than to face what's in it. But here's the truth that changes everything: that mirror is not there to shame them. It's there to free them. Because the parts of ourselves we hide are the very parts that need healing. And love, real love, is one of the few forces powerful enough to bring them into the light. It's not trying to expose them to humiliate. It's trying to reveal them so they can grow. And when an avoidant chooses to stay instead of running, when they choose to sit with that discomfort rather than push it away, that's when transformation begins. That's when love stops being a threat and starts becoming a teacher. And if you're the one loving someone with avoidant tendencies, understanding this dynamic changes everything. Their withdrawal isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their battle with themselves. It's not you they're pushing away, it's the uncomfortable version of themselves they're afraid to confront. Your compassion doesn't mean tolerating unhealthy behavior, but it does mean recognizing the deeper struggle beneath it. At the heart of it, this is what avoidants must come to realize: you cannot love deeply while hiding deeply. The same walls that keep you safe also keep you isolated. And while running from those parts of yourself might have protected you once, it's now the very thing keeping you from the love you want most. Here's the final paradox that confuses so many people about avoidant behavior. Sometimes pushing you away is not their way of ending the relationship. It's their distorted way of protecting it. As backward as that may sound, it makes perfect sense once you understand the emotional logic operating beneath the surface. For an avoidant, closeness can feel like a threat, not because they don't care, but because they fear that their presence, their flaws, or their vulnerability might harm what they value most. And so they retreat, they create space, they pull back, not as a rejection of love, but as an attempt to preserve it. It's important to realize that many avoidants carry a deep-seated fear of failure in relationships. They worry they'll let you down, lose themselves, or somehow ruin the connection if they get too close. That fear isn't always conscious. Often, it's woven into the fabric of their emotional memory. They've seen relationships implode under the weight of expectations. They've felt suffocated or overwhelmed before, and their nervous system remembers that pain. So when intimacy grows, they instinctively back away, convinced that distance will keep the relationship stable, that it will prevent something from breaking. In their internal world, that distance isn't abandonment, it's maintenance. It's them saying, I care about this too much to mess it up. They think that by stepping back, they're protecting both you and themselves from the intensity that scares them. This is why you'll often hear avoidants say things like, I just need space, or I don't want to hurt you. It's not a line. It's a reflection of their fear that their closeness will create damage they can't repair. They're trying to manage the relationship in the only way they know how, by pulling away before they get in too deep. The tragedy is that this protective instinct often backfires. Instead of preserving the connection, it erodes it. Instead of reducing risk, it amplifies it. Because what the avoidant doesn't realize is that relationships aren't strengthened by distance. They're strengthened by presence. Love doesn't grow in the space between two people. It grows in the space they're willing to share. And the very thing they fear, being truly seen, truly known, truly connected, is also the very thing that creates the safety they're searching for. This is where the deeper work lies, both for the avoidant and the person who loves them. For the avoidant, it's about understanding that vulnerability doesn't destroy relationships. Avoidance does. That closeness doesn't mean losing yourself. It means expanding yourself. And that the impulse to pull away, while once a form of protection, now stands in the way of the very intimacy they crave. Their task is to learn a new form of protection. One rooted not in withdrawal, but in communication, self-awareness, and trust. For the partner, it's about recognizing that their distance is not necessarily a verdict on your worth. It's not always about you, it's about their internal struggle to reconcile love with safety. And while that doesn't excuse harmful patterns, it does invite a deeper level of empathy. One that allows you to navigate the space between closeness and distance without collapsing into resentment or self-blame. Boundaries remain essential, but so does perspective. At the heart of all of this is a simple but profound truth: love cannot be preserved by hiding from it. Avoidants push you away when they love you not because love is weak, but because love is powerful. Powerful enough to stir fears they haven't yet learned to master. Their withdrawal is not proof of indifference. It's proof of how much is at stake for them. And the journey toward deeper connection begins when they realize that the only real way to protect love is to show up for it, fully, vulnerably, courageously,